So I wondered, I couldn't help but wonder throughout this chapter, the younger son, by asking for the inheritance, now it says he basically wished his father dead. And I guess my wondering is there a, did the elder son in a sense do the same thing? But I think the elder son, I think his resentment and his anger and his bitterness didn't so much say, I wish you were dead, as it almost said, you're dead to me, like you're no father at all. I'm just your
Right.
slave. So it changed their relationship so much that it became more like this, and now it talks about this more like the slave and the slave owner. But in some ways, the result is the same. The father is dead to both sons. The relationship is dead.
You can
Yeah.
see what the younger son did. I mean, it's more evident. Took the money, squandered it, left, kind of spit on his dad at some point. The other one, it's harder to see, but it's there.
What page is that where he talks about that? Because that's
Well,
really good stuff.
65, at the bottom of 65, so it says it is not so difficult to sympathize with a lustful character who indulges in the hedonistic pleasures of the world, then repents, returns home, and becomes a very spiritual person. You can get that, right? But appreciating a man with deep resentments, wasting much of his precious time in rather petty court cases and constantly alienating people by his arrogant behavior is harder to do. Because he looks like he's the dutiful son, but he's really kind of a.
Yeah, page 71, it says in the middle of the page, it says, outwardly the elder son was faultless. I think about the Apostle Paul and some of his writings. He says, there was really nobody that compared to me, a Hebrew of Hebrews, a Pharisee by training. I had basically saying I had all the credentials, and I don't remember why exactly he's talking about that, except that I think that he goes on to say that this sin continues to dwell in him no matter what he does. I think that's kind of the section in Romans where he's talking about, his own struggle against sin, which is kind of where the older son needs to get to, right? He needs to look in a mirror instead of looking at his brother. He needs to look in the mirror and say, I too am a sinner. I too have wandered away from the Father.
Well, this older son, he's not just mad that the son came home and was giving a warm welcome. He's been mad since he left, probably. I can't believe that dad gave him all that money and now he's just run off and he's ruining it. I'm here having to do this all by myself. He's probably been mad all along, and this just really like iced the cake. Like, are you kidding?
So there had to be other people that then came to the party. So probably not more than just the elder son were upset about what was happening, I would guess.
Oh, yeah.
The workers, the people that had been there all the time that the prodigal son had been gone. You think they just jumped in and rejoiced?
Are the other workers at the party, or are there other people invited into the party? Do we know?
We don't really know. No, I'm trying to think what Pastor Peters talks about in regards to this parable. I think he touches on that the servants would begrudge this as well, and I don't remember. Because the father, again, in those days, the father would have been a benefactor, right? He was a wealthy man, so the servants would have, or not, so his father probably had servants who were like slaves, but he also had benefactors, people that he gave money to, and when he called in a favor, they would be expected to do a favor. Well, they're not going to like this either, because, if he's forgiving the debt of this son, if he's welcoming him in open arms, what does this say about others who might default on their loans, stuff like that. So, yeah, Bill talks about how the whole community may have been upset about this father who welcomes his son home with no question.
I'm just putting myself in that situation, just in general life. And if I'm going to be angry and resentful about some situation, it's hard to do it all by yourself. You kind of want to surround yourself with other people that are in agreement, you know, even if you're not doing the correct thing. So the more people that can be on your side, the more justified I would feel in my anger and resentment.
So wouldn't that be the next step for the son, if the oldest son, if he's not gonna go into the party? Because now it kind of leaves, I mean, just as the painting and the story leaves us hanging. We don't know what the elder son's gonna do, but if he decides not to go into the party, isn't he gonna somehow send word into the party, hey, I'm out here? You guys that agree with me, come on out. You know, let's have our own party, you know what I'm saying?
Or don't go in. Say, I'm having a little trouble hearing Rod and Kathy.
Okay,
Maybe you
I
guys-
don't know.
Yeah, I have my volume turned up all the way, and it sounds like you do also, Joanne.
Yeah, I do, but
We'll move up a little closer. Hopefully that'll help.
or else the other people around, the other workers and whatever that are out with this elder son are kind of looking to see what he's going to do,
Yeah.
you know, see how this affects him. And yeah. And so, I mean, we don't ever know if he goes into the party.
I mean, it could be those that were happy too, because it's like, oh, wow, look at how merciful he is, you know, look, wow, you know,
Mhm.
don't have to worry about, you know. The son squandered all that money and I only owe him $100, you know. So it could go either way,
great.
but.
You know, I thought it was really interesting when, you know, we've all seen this picture, but that's not the true picture. With a father welcoming the son and the elder son standing there looking on, because he never saw his father
Right,
embrace his younger son,
right,
did he?
no,
I mean, I guess when I look at that picture and heard the story, I just never made that connection, but the elder son was just not there. And he was told later, you know, and I guess just a lot of things I had to think about. I mean, when I got done reading The Elder Son, I thought, boy, does he pinpoint me. But anyway, does he know me?
Me
But
too.
then I think about, you know, we live 8 hours from my home. And whenever we would go out home, my mom would call all the brothers and sisters around to come down because Joanne was home. And now I think about,
Oh.
maybe they were busy, maybe they had other things. And why does mom make this big supper and bring everybody together? Because Joanne is home. You know, I had never thought of that before. But they could have, you know, I mean, did mom do that for the kids that live around? I don't know.
yeah.
No, because they probably stopped in. They probably saw her more on occasion. To me, it's mom gathering the whole family together.
That's what I was gonna say. To me, that's more
Yeah.
about for my mom. Because my mom was danged if she did, danged if she didn't. Because if she didn't tell people, then they were like, well, you didn't say Renee was home. But if she did, then it was like, you know, well, I'm busy. I've got other things going on, you know. So it was like, you know, she was in a no-win situation.
Yeah. Well, and I know mom did it in the best she wanted. She always wanted all her kids to be together. But then I thought, how many things did they have to, I don't know, resent that a little? I don't know. I'll have to ask them. We're gonna Zoom tomorrow. I'm gonna ask them.
I think it opens the door to those kind of questions, you know, because there are these kind of resentments in every family at some level, don't you think? Big or small, I mean.
Well, earlier Kathy was talking about taking care of elderly parents. And we took care of Ken's mom, and I always, you know, when I look at it, I probably was resentful. I'm the daughter-in-law and I'm the one that took care of her.
Mhm.
Just because we lived here. I mean, it's really nobody's fault. But I just found the whole chapter interesting at how in order to come home, we have to get rid of that resentment and whatever toward people or to people that we disagree with or whatever. It was really an eye-opener for me, this whole chapter.
Yeah.
Well, I will say I have a nurse who, she's very good. She's always on top of things, but every once in a while she gets a little pissy because, well, why can't other people step up? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So she's being a good nurse and she's doing what she needs to do and she's the one that gets stuff done. And then, but every once in a while she goes, you know, sure be nice if a few other people or more people would do this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get that from the human standpoint, right?
Right.
From a system standpoint.
Yeah.
It takes all of us to make, whether it's family or work or whatever it is, it takes all of us to make it work. And so when you feel like somebody's not pulling their share, it can create resentment, bitterness. But again, the father's system, the father's household is run differently than ours, right?
Right.
I mean, that's the whole problem with this story is that the kid comes home and it costs him nothing.
Right.
He's given back his sonship. And darn it, we don't like that at some level.
No, we don't.
We can all relate to that, I think. This is not fair. This is not just. He should have to earn it just like I earned it. You know, there's all those things that would block us from a father treating a son like that.
Yes, but the end result is I don't want God to treat me that way. So I want to be embraced and forgiven and to say, well done, child, whether I've been doing that for an hour or for 20 years.
Yeah, I think it's also hard to make that distinction. Like when you read it from an earthly standpoint, you know, I can recognize a lot of what he's saying. But when I think about it from a spiritual standpoint, I have more trouble with that because I don't see God. I don't know. I've never seen God like that. Like I have a sister that does. Like, why does God do this to me? I mean, why don't I have blah, blah, blah? I just never have seen God that way. I don't feel like I'm less blessed or more blessed than someone else because of what God's done to me. Or how God's treated me. I see it more just as, you know, like we live in a sinful world and this is just the way things are. And, you know, so I can relate to it more from like an earthly perspective than I can from a spiritual perspective, just for myself. I agree. Because I just don't see God that way, but maybe I'll feel different someday. I don't know. I mean, I don't think that like anybody doesn't deserve that forgiveness, that same forgiveness that I'm going to get. You know, I don't feel that way.
I think that's what Carolyn was saying too, isn't that, Carolyn? That
Yes.
you want to be received that way by the Father,
Right.
so
Yes.
you don't want to hold that from anyone else.
Right. Right. And the other thing that comes to my mind, and I'm not reading the same book you are, I'm listening to a podcast, but some of us have a servant heart, and I'm not one of them. And I don't think the elder son had a servant's heart either. I don't know if the prodigal son did or not. I think that's a gift you either have or you don't. I don't like serving other people.
So well, that's fine. So wouldn't the elder son have been better off if he recognized within himself, I do not have a servant's heart? Now, in his day, he probably couldn't have, but in our,
Mhm.
if you're serving a father or a mother or a sister that it does not fit with who you are, didn't he have the freedom, and wouldn't he and the father have been better off had he gone and done his own thing?
Probably.
And I think he had the freedom to do that. Surely he did. The younger son did, right?
Yep.
So what is your, if your gift isn't to be a servant, what is it, and where do you find it, and how do you locate yourself in a place? That's a great question, a great thought, Carolyn, to think about that. Where do you locate yourself then in a way so that you can experience that deep relationship with the Father while living out the gifts that you've been given? I think that's great.
But Carolyn, I have to disagree with you. You are the most hospitable and serving person I know. You ran the bed and breakfast. You are always so gracious and serve people in your home. Don't say you're not a serving people person, I mean.
I have reached the point where if somebody, since we get together so seldom in the last couple of years, so if my kids are all here and somebody offers to get me a cup of coffee, I say, thank you, I'd like that if you would serve me. I'm getting more of that as I don't know if this is because I'm isolating, or typically I'd get up and make the coffee and serve it, but now I'm like, yeah, serve me.
Well, that's the time of our life. I was also going to say what Pastor Rod said. If you're in a family of a number of siblings, there are those who are the rebels.
Yep.
Anyway, this is my family. There are those who are the rebels. There are those who are the pleasers. There are those who work hard when they're told to work hard, and those that just work hard because they do it. There's just all kinds.
Yeah.
And I'm third born. I'm a peacemaker. I like things to run smoothly. And so I have never rebelled. I'm waiting for the day when I'm going to rebel.
You do it when you're younger, when you're expected to rebel.
Well,
Though my sister
but
never rebelled, but
this is just a warning. So if you hear things about me at 80 years old, I'm going to rebel and say, I'm not going to do that anymore. So, no, but I see the older son as that type. He's dutiful. He stays with his father. He takes care of, and he must be good at what he does.
Right.
And then there's this rebellious one. I have rebellious siblings that have really rebelled. And I guess I always thought, I wish I could do that, but I couldn't ever. So anyway.
Well, that's interesting that you see yourself as the conformist, because it sounds like you might be one of the only ones of your siblings who left the area. And for some families, those who stay behind see that as a rebellion.
Yep.
What do you think about that?
Well, I married Ken.
Yeah.
He got a job in Iowa.
Yeah.
All right, what are you gonna do?
So we left. My sister lives in Minneapolis, but the rest of them all still live around home.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes
I don't know. They
sometimes
might.
leaving home can be seen as being rebellious. Even today, you're kind of labeled as being selfish because you go off and do your own thing. Again, I don't see it that way. I mean, I was called away from the farm. I left those responsibilities behind. But I don't have any brothers who remain on the farm, but if I did, I could certainly see them being somewhat resentful of that.
I didn't really rebel in the family. oddly, my sister, the oldest, would be the rebellious one. My brother, you'd think was the oldest, because he's like, you go to college, you get a job, you make good money, you do what you're supposed to do. I was just kind of I was more the peacemaker. I wanted things to be this way. But I rebel like at work and stuff like other places. I'm the one that might stir the pot or be a little bit of I'm just one of those managers that's gonna go, what? No, wait, and they know that about me. And so I'm gonna ask the question, I'm gonna push the button, and I'm gonna say, no, I'm not just gonna do that. I need to know more. But at home, I really wasn't that way.
One of the wonderings I had is, what would the painting look like? Again, we don't know the end of the story, but what would the painting look like if the older son had embraced the joy of the son?
His face is very peaceful. When I look at my iPhone very closely, I don't see anger or resentment there. It's just, I guess I can't read it other than it looks like peaceful.
The very end of the chapter, it does say, as I look again at Rembrandt's older son, I realize that the cold light on his face can become deep and warm, transforming him totally and making him who he truly is. So, I think that's why Rembrandt had to study this thing for hours on end, just to get all the nuances and see what was really what.
His body
Sure, yeah,
posture is definitely withholding, he's not embracing the.
Right.
It's like he's thinking about it.
It looks like he's not really looking at the father or the son, he's looking at the floor.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He's pondering.
So he's kind of looking past or looking,
And maybe rethinking his original outburst.
That could be.
And I thought it interesting too, the father ran to get the prodigal son when he's coming home, but he also ran to the elder son. It said he ran out to get him. So to me, that was interesting that the father, and I think the father runs to those who are rebellious, but he also runs to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if
and welcomes us.
Yeah.
No matter what our life has been.
Sure.
Aren't we both? Aren't we both people?
At different times, for sure, yeah.
Sure.
Maybe even at the same time.
At the same time,
Mhm.
I can run to the father and be like the younger son, run to God. But yet in my earthly relationships, I can much more relate to the, older son. Just different things, you feel slighted or you don't feel accepted. And, so then that changes how you treat that person. Rod and I were just having a conversation about that this week, and it's like, Rod just giving me feedback when we were talking, made me kind of think about that and how different that is. And, and life changes you, like I'm not who I was when Rod began the ministry. I'm not the same person,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Those hurts or what you feel are betrayals or whatever, they affect you,
Mm-hmm.
and how you interact with the community.
And I think I told you guys, I'm a Martha. I just am. I'm trying to get everything just so, and I'm like, could you help me? Seriously, Jesus, she's not helping. I am kind of that way, and I've had to recognize that about myself, like even in the church kitchen or, potlucks at work or whatever it is, trying to get it. I went back when we had the wings program here, when, that was what Wednesday night was. And so I taught wings for a few years with somebody, and I felt like all I was doing was trying to keep these 3-year-olds from getting hurt and chaos, and the other is la 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 la, and I'm like, come on, it just made me mad, and I was just being myself about me is I want things to be kind of so
Mhm.
at the expense of maybe relaxing and talking to Jesus.
And I think like when Nouwen was talking about how that affects, like, he was talking about his relationship with his dad and never telling him he loved him and stuff, and you know, how that stood in as an obstacle, not only to their relationship, but to his relationship with God, you know, and that, I thought that was really interesting to think about that, because we don't usually think in that way, you know, it's like our relationship with God is here and our relationship with other people is, I mean, for me, I don't always see them as intertwined, you know.
I think that's, well, I was gonna say pretty universal, you know, with our feelings towards other people, and Kathy, the same with you. You know, I've been in situations like that too, that I just, you know, and I have to let go. But it's hard to let go, because who's going to do it? If, you know, when I grew up and mom and dad would go somewhere and my older brother and sister would go outside to play, I'd be so nervous that we didn't get the dishes done before the folks got home that I would go in and do the dishes by myself. They were overjoyed.
Of course.
So why did I do that? So, you know, so, and so there was always, I think that the resentment hasn't carried over to today, but I think about that, how that molded me. But anyway.
Yeah, it might have, like, you might have felt resentment at the time, but it's not something that you felt.
It's nothing that still carries over, but.
You recognize it, and yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm glad that there are people like you, Joanne, because I like being the free spirit. And so my sister would be the responsible one. So I didn't have to be. Somebody was already playing that role, and she still does. And she's a lovely, lovely person. I cannot do the things that she does in terms of reaching out to people. But she just has that very pleasing personality. I don't even know. I think the only time she's gotten mad at me that I know of is when we'd be doing dishes together when we were teenagers, and I'd put the dirty dish back in the water and she'd get mad at me. Otherwise, I don't think we ever get mad at each other.
Sounds like you have a system that works.
As long as we stay in our roles, yes.
So don't try to become the responsible one, Karen.
I won't. But with my children, the ones that aren't quite responsible, I would say we're more so. So you see, yeah.
Well, so getting to that kind of stuff, on the top of page 81, the first full paragraph. In the house of my Father, there are many places to live, Jesus says. Each child of God has there his or her unique place, all of them places of God. I have to let go of all comparison, all rivalry and competition, and surrender to the Father's love. Wow. Can we really do that?
Well,
I mean, that's so much a part of who, I mean, I watch my grandchildren growing up in their sibling groups, and there's so much competition and bickering and, you know, just kind of back and forth. They're like cats, you know, fighting it out. It's like,
I would say once I really thought about Martha and Mary and realized how much of a Martha I was, it did help me realize, okay, you're a Martha, and that's okay.
and not everybody is.
But
right?
don't be mad at Mary, you know, and so, I mean, that realization did help me realize that we're all a little different, and I can't be mad at Mary because that's her gift, and my gift is being Martha. I like page 85 where it talked about gratitude being the opposite of resentment. And we just have to make a conscious choice about that. I can choose to be grateful even when my emotions and feelings are still steeped in hurt and resentment. It's amazing how many occasions present themselves in which I can choose gratitude instead of complaint. I can choose to be grateful when I'm criticized because I got information that would help me, or I can be bitter about it. I can choose to speak about goodness and beauty even when I'm looking for the bad in somebody, and so it's just that conscious choice. And unfortunately, our sinful nature unfortunately takes some of us down the other path too quickly, and thinking about what is it that is good about this situation. I mean, we all know people who, no matter what, the Christmas letter that's going to be about all their ailments and complaints, or the one that's going to be all about the solutions and how they conquered this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just kind of know, well, okay, let's see what kind of drama and strife they had this year. Or,
Yeah.
read the one that says, well, this happened, but we got help. And you know what I mean? Some people will always lean towards the woe is me negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not sure. Yeah, I can see that.
What do you guys have, a cat in the room?
Yeah.
A little kid.
There's a cat or a kid in the hallway.
Oh, okay.
Looking for their mom or something.
Oh,
But, yeah, I mean, like that gratitude or, I think that like a lot of times too, it's like easy to get on that complaint wagon or easy to get on the criticism wagon, rather than stepping in, like even in a group of people, like if somebody's saying, well, I mean, work, for example, somebody's saying, well, this person doesn't do this, this, and this, and this, and then, instead of the next person saying, well, but,
Right, and then they may
she
go,
does do this,
Yeah,
or,
you're right.
yeah, instead usually we kind of add to it, or,
Yeah.
I don't know why that's the easier route, but.
Well, and I think you look for people like-minded, and I think it's in our nature. I mean, when I'm irritated
that's
at what
true.
my organization is doing, I'm gonna call a manager who I think might feel like I do, so we can complain about it together. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna call somebody who's gonna go, oh, Kathy, come on. I'm gonna call somebody who's gonna go, you're right. Because we want that camaraderie in whatever it is.
that was my point about the elder son, that he had to surround himself with other people that thought the same way for him to
Right,
take such a firm stand. It's pretty hard to stand by yourself
right,
against people that have a different scenario going on, and you're not on the same page as they are.
right.
Well, I think gratitude is the secret to life.
I do too.
So, does anybody else really like the part where God said, where the dad says, but all I have, was your son, it's like, he wouldn't withhold anything from either of them. It was really the older son, just perception
Right.
that he had withheld. Did he ever ask God to kill, or his dad to kill the fatted calf for him and let him throw a party? He just says, you never did it.
Mhm.
I think sometimes in life, that's the way it is. We don't ask for what we want or what we need, from God, and sometimes we just don't know, or even from the people in our life, we don't.
And someone's like, but I worked hard, and if you would have appreciated it,
Right.
you might have made that gesture. It's just like, God told you he loved you on your wedding day, but you would like to hear it more.
Yeah, like
You would,
20 times a day would be good.
yeah, but you don't want him to say, well, I told you that when I married you, and so that's where
Right.
the older son is coming from. Well, you could have expressed some appreciation. Why
Right.
did I have to ask for it? Why do I have to ask you to tell me you love me? So
Right.
that's where the older son is coming from.
Yeah,
A little bit of, you could have
yeah,
said, hey. I mean, so you
Yeah,
can,
and Lukey says, but you never gave me a goat that I might celebrate with my friends. It's like being kind of helpless.
Right.
And of course, the authority that a father had then would be so strong, wouldn't it, that you wouldn't go against what society would expect of you. Only the prodigal son did. He went against that.
Or the fear of rejection, like what if he says no,
Ah, mm-hmm.
Be-
But to me, it's kind of human nature for the father, the son that's there and works alongside of him and does everything and must have done it well. We don't often show our gratitude and our thanks
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
because it's day to day to day to day. It's like the old joke of the German says, I told you I loved you when I married you, and if I changed my mind, I'll let you know.
Right.
But, and I've heard people say,
I thought that was a Norwegian, but.
I
Well-
did too.
in my family, it was always the German. But anyway, I've heard people and talk to people who have left a job and gone other places and they say, if I'd have known I was appreciated this much when I was here. But we don't often until it's the farewell party or whatever they're moving. You say, oh, all these, but we aren't so good at complimenting Rod or Zach on the sermon or the choir or whatever. And we just say, nice sermon, but do we ever tell? I think that's just a human that we need to work on, is to show our appreciation, or all the platitudes at a funeral.
Mhm.
Did you tell that person all those things before they died?
Right.
I've been thinking a lot about that lately, which we aren't so good at doing.
Right.
I should say I'm not so good at doing.
Right.
Well, sometimes it's embarrassing to give somebody a compliment because they're embarrassed to receive it. That's not an excuse, but it's a social thing that one has to overcome to give those compliments.
Right.
And I used to say to people, if I gave them a compliment and they're like, oh, I said, all you have to say is thank you. But I get tired of doing that. It's like,
Or sometimes like you say something to somebody and it's a compliment and it comes out like sounding weird or something, so
yeah.
it's hard.
Mhm.
So you don't want somebody to think that like you're hitting on them or, if you tell somebody they look nice or you're beautiful or, whatever, that.
Or more than compliments, appreciation. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you do.
Right.
What you do or what you say is always so meaningful. I mean, I guess it's how you
Yeah.
phrase it, which is different than, oh, I like your hair. Oh,
Right. That's
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
to say, I appreciate your smile every morning.
Mhm.
I appreciate the way you are so welcoming to people, or all of those kind of things.
Mhm. Yeah, that feels differently and easier to accept. Yeah.
Than a compliment.
Yeah. And those are deeper. Like deeper meaning. Yeah. That's true.
So I want to go back to this idea of all that I have is yours. What is it? I mean, I'd be curious to know how each of us hears those words. If those are words that God speaks to you and I, what does that mean for us and for the reality of our lives? All that I have is yours. I'd just be curious to know what you all might think about that.
Coming from God, not from our earthly father.
Yeah, from God. Yeah. I mean, if this is God, inviting us home, what do those words mean? Because the kingdom, I mean, well, I'll just listen.
Thumbs up. Yeah, he was just being a prankster.
Okay, good. The lost child has been found.
Oh, okay. Well, God gives us gifts that we are told sometimes we don't open. We just put them in the closet. So I'm not even aware of all that he gives me. But the first thing that comes to my mind is joy.
I always think it must be hard for that faithful person that lives a life of faith, but then they get a horrible diagnosis. And you pray and you pray and you pray, and how do they sustain that? I just think sometimes that must be hard.
You mean like kind of bitter?
Well, maybe, or the family, because I think of, this might be off topic, but one of my pet peeves is that when somebody says, oh my gosh, my husband's cancer is in remission, God is good. All right, well, what about these guys over here that prayed and were faithful and he died? I mean, I struggle with that a little bit in wondering how the other person feels. And I'm not saying God is not good and God did not heal, but how does that other person feel sometimes? And so in thinking about, everything that God has is ours, I guess that means in life and in death. And, there are people that are actively being tortured and actively, and, where is God and all of that? I don't know. I just wonder how hard it is for those people. I've not been in that situation.
I mean, I think you answered your question there in a sense that all that I have is yours in life and in death. And so if God heals us, what a great gift. If God doesn't heal us, can we not trust that the kingdom will be opened and all of what God has will be open to us in a new way? I mean, I think the reality for both of those people is in a sense a blessed reality where there's faith.
Right.
Now, that again, it can still be a hard pill to swallow. And it can be taken wrong when, like you said, one person is healed and another person has prayed equally as much and isn't.
Right. Or, we almost got killed in a car accident and the angels were with us on that highway. Well,
Awesome.
somebody that we know just got killed last week. And so where were the angels?
Right. This is a conversation my sister Pat and I have had over the last 3 years while her husband was sick, and still are kind of having now that he's gone to be with Jesus. But in my mind, but I tend to I'm kind of I tend to be more black and white. I don't live very well in gray. So, in my mind, there's this life and we live in sin, and there's God's world and there isn't sin. So because we're sinful, we're here. And so if we, whatever happens over here isn't necessarily that God made it happen.
That's what I feel.
But,
yes,
when you say, but then some people will give God all the credit for the good, which that to me gets in the gray area and it gets confusing. So,
yeah, I mean,
I believe that,
stuff,
but I also don't believe that God makes the bad things happen. So
a close friend of mine died when we were 44, kind of unexpectedly. And when I went to that funeral, it was in Rochester, it was a female pastor, and she started out the sermon saying, I do not believe that God took Annette away from us to go to heaven. I believe that when Annette died, God was the first one that cried. And I was like, thank you. Because I had always struggled that was the first death that year of 8 people close to me that I was going to lose, that I didn't know I was going to lose. I knew one was going to die and she was like the 4th one. But that sermon got me through all of those to say, it's a circumstance of a broken world. It's a circumstance of life. God did not say, I want you. He always wants us to live a full and healthy life. And he didn't say, you know what, I can use you better up here.
Right.
I mean, just the way she kind of crafted that made me feel so much better. And that Annette died because it was a broken world. And God cried. He did not want that for her.
Right.
I mean,
or he didn't want you guys to feel the pain.
Right.
I mean, he knew what he had in store for her. So he may
Right.
not have cried for her, but he may have cried for you.
right, Right.
We've had that discussion too, Pat and I, but.
yeah, I don't know.
What does Nouwen say about what are God's gifts to us? Does he address that issue?
Like where you said, everything I have is yours, does he
Yeah,
say?
I don't know that he does.
Okay,
I'm trying to think. I don't think he does in this chapter.
I didn't
I didn't
catch it
get
if
the
he
last few
did,
pages
but-
read, so I guess it may be in there, but.
But I mean, like if you think about the gifts, like not in like monetary wealth, I mean, I think that's how we think a lot of times is monetary wealth or worldly comforts, but like his peace and his forgiveness, you know, that we can extend to others, that the love that we get from others, all of that, you know, God's kingdom stuff is all around us. And it is all ours if we can only lay down our defenses long enough to see it or feel it, or I don't know. I mean,
no, I agree with you. We have to be aware of it. I think we have things around us all the time that we don't see and therefore are not grateful. So eyes and mind have to be open to those, what's happening around us that are God's good gifts.
Yeah, I mean, I think now and would just, I mean, I don't know, it's just a guess, but I think now and he harps so much on this idea that you are my beloved. I think he would say that that's where life begins, and that's kind of the source of all God's gifts is just is that knowledge of being in relationship with a Father who welcomes us. You know, in spite of what we have to offer, or in spite of what we can earn. So I mean, I think that's probably where Nouwen would start, is to say that because you are the beloved, you know, no matter what happens to you in the circumstances of life, whether you're applauded or rejected, whether you're successful or a failure, whether you have cancer and overcome, or have cancer and die, no matter what happens to you in life, God is with you to care for you, bless you, and welcome you home, you know.
He does talk about a little bit here, the Father's love does not force itself on the beloved. So what is there for us? Healing inner darkness, God's light, God's forgiveness, God's boundless love. You know, I mean, I guess when you say, when all that I have is yours, I guess those are some things that, you know, because he's not talking about tangible things. He's talking about, you know, inner peace and light and love and forgiveness and.
Yeah, I think it would be from our world, it would, you know, if somebody said, all that I have is yours, you would think monetarily and not,
Sure.
you know, but I don't really think that's what Jesus or this Father, I mean, in some ways, that is what this Father in the prodigal son story, it is about money, it is about land, it is about wealth. But ultimately, it's about this relationship, right? That the son has to either choose or reject. I mean, that's where it's going to start and end, is in that choice for you know, gratitude or not, like you guys talked about earlier with gratitude. So yeah.
So
in terms of it's about relationship.
Nouwen's message is so simple. We are the beloved, but he's written what, 27 books, 43 books or something. But it's just, well, when you preach anything, it's like always the same message. So why do we need so many of his books? Why are we studying him? Because he wants us to know we are the beloved. Because he's trying to convince himself that he's the beloved, I guess.
That's his own inner turmoil that forces him to go deep, you know, and why do we need it? Because we have as hard and thick of skulls as he does. I mean, you know, how often don't we forget this? How often, you know, do we struggle to hear, you know, and instead work for the world's approval and work for the, you know, applause of others, or, you know, whatever it might be, trying to earn our own way and trying to measure up, you know. I mean, how often don't we fall back into that trap? It's literally sin's goal is to convince us that we're not the beloved.
Well, yeah, but so many books with the same message.
But I
That,
mean,
I guess,
oh,
go
don't
ahead.
all sermons have the same message?
Maybe.
I
What?
mean, I said, don't all sermons? I've told Rod many times.
Yes, that's what I said. Yeah, they're all the same message. Yeah.
Yeah, all you need to do is get up there and say that Jesus loves you, Jesus came, Jesus died, you are forgiven, and that's pretty much it.
Amen.
That was 4 times as long as your typical sermon. Usually you just, God loves you, amen.
One thing that
Right.
I struggled with when I read it was on page 79. It says Jesus is very critical of those who say their prayers standing up in their synagogues and at street corners for people to see them. But doesn't he also tell us that we must go out and tell people about him?
Yeah, but we're not supposed to make a spectacle of ourselves.
I think there he's talking about the Pharisees and stuff, like, because like, isn't he talking about, if I remember, he was talking about the son being self-righteous,
Okay.
I did this and I was the perfect son and, now you're welcoming this loser home,
Because
and,
we're also not supposed to keep our faith to ourselves.
but that's like the Pharisees, they would
Okay.
stand up in public, but then they didn't,
So that's based on a self-righteousness story where the publican looks at the tax collector and says, thank you, God, I'm now like, and he's over there
Because-
beating his breast saying, Father, forgive me.
Because Nouwen says, with all of my writing and speaking about prayer and with all the publicity that I enjoy, I can't wonder if he's talking about me.
right.
I can't help but wonder.
I mean, yeah, there is that. I mean, sometimes okay, this sounds really bad, so just don't tell anybody I said this.
We're recording.
It's recording.
Oh, okay, I won't say it.
Oh, come on, I want to hear it now.
Oh, now the world
Yeah,
wonders.
we can edit it out.
I was just gonna say, sometimes, do you ever run into people who like every other word out of their mouth is like, I'm so blessed, I'm, God, yeah, it's like, okay. But is that like, is that genuine or is that just like what you want the world to see you as, it's like, maybe it may not be, but, sometimes when I run into those people, I think that, it's like.
Where do you find them? Or are they saying that because you're the pastor's wife? Because I don't find those kind of people.
You don't? Oh.
No. Mm-mm. So are they being sincere or do they know they're talking to a pastor's wife? That would be my question.
Yeah, or maybe, maybe it's the context I'm in, like too, I go to different kinds of things sometimes where there's more other pastors' wives things,
Oh, okay. Mhm.
I think Nouwen's books, he was certainly a man of great faith,
Mhm.
but he struggled.
Right.
And to me, I struggle.
Yep.
And I think, and in no way can I compare my faith to his. And don't we always, and I think we will struggle to the end at knowing and accepting that we are the beloved, that everything that God has is ours. And yet we do this dumb stuff all the time.
Right.
And to me, it's just, it kind of says, Joanne, it's okay to struggle.
Yeah.
To struggle with your faith or to know what the right thing to do or the right thing to say or, all of that kind of stuff that I think, we're all broken people.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when we realize that, and so was Nouwen, and yet he has this gift of perception and faith and can see in his struggles where it's going, or to to figure out this painting. I mean, it's unbelievable, but yet he struggled. And I think he struggled his whole life. You know, he would try when he was in South America, and he thought, this can't be all there is. And it's too much. And then, of course, I haven't read the one yet. And I think I'm leading it, the one where he's at the the home for the handicapped, and how that affected him. And sometimes I think our experiences just raise more doubt sometime about what is the meaning of all of this, and where do I find the most meaning in my life, in what I do. So I agree. I've listened to some of his podcasts too, but they're all, I mean, the basis is we are the beloved. I am the beloved. But how many times do we have to hear that before we really believe it? Or what do we have to experience before we really, really believe that? I mean, I know it here.
Yeah.
But do I know it here?
So
Sometimes.
part of what I hear you saying is that the deeper we get into our faith, and there's been times in my life when I've gotten very deep into my faith, then the more questioning we do, and that's what Nouwen was doing. Is that kind of what you're saying, Joanne?
Well, you know, years ago, I took a class under Pastor Michelle, and it was called Space for God.
Mhm.
And it was a lot of Nouwen. There was a lot of, artworks and that kind of stuff. And so we went through that course, and then we were going to go into another course. And she said, "Are you sure you want to go this deep? Because it's not easy.
Mm.
You will get more questions." And I think that's where Nouwen is. And I want to say, no, I'm fine where I'm at. But for some reason, I'm always questioning. And I've read a number of I've read some of Nouwen, but of I can't think of her name right now. She's a Catholic nun. I mean, and Mother Teresa, and all of the struggles, and how deep do you want to go, and how deep, or I always think, how deep is God calling me to go? Because some days it would just be so nice to not think about all that, just go about my day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Pastor Rod, when you chose this on spirituality, and I mean, different people have said to me, I just want a plain old Bible study. I don't want to think about that stuff.
Oh, wow. Ooh.
Because it is deep. You know, I think this chapter, I mean, in the whole book, when we look at ourselves, are we the prodigal son, or are we the elder son? And how we relate to other people. And sometimes it's more comfortable not thinking about that, but to be challenged to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think people like Nouwen, theologians like Nouwen, who spend their lives in the study of God's word, they are faced with questions. I mean, he asked questions in this book. There were 4 or 5 questions in a row that I kind of highlighted, and I just thought, wow, those are really deep questions. And I mean, I think as theologians go, and others, spiritual people who go through and wrestle with those questions, I think that's where they come back to these simple truths. I know I read an interview with one of the Niebuhr brothers before they died. You know, they were great theologians, and the interview person interviewing asked, what is your greatest theological insight? And they said, God is love. And then what is the next greatest thing that you've ever discovered? And he said something like, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me. So, so you go through these deep and profound questions and you come back to the very simple truth, which I think is, to me, that's the profound nature of Nouwen, is that he continually comes back to this one nugget of life-sustaining truth that he can hold on to, and he offers it to us as gift. And so no matter how many times I hear that, it's like it's a refreshing glass of water in my life. Well, it's that time. What are we doing next week? We're gonna look at the Father, or 2 weeks from
2
tonight?
weeks, we're gonna
look
look at the Father, and that will tie us up.
All right,
Yeah,
we're gonna wrap it up next Wednesday, or 2 weeks from
2
tonight.
weeks from tonight.
And,
Yeah.
You wanna stay home and do this online, or? what
I
do you
can
do?
do either one. I mean, we can easily just announce
Yeah.
that it's gonna be Zoom.
We'll do.
I mean, it's winter,
We'll
it's dark,
yeah.
and that's fine. I worked fine last week, I
Yeah,
thought,
we did.
so that's fine.
All right. Well, thanks for
Thank you,
joining
guys.
us. God
Thanks.
bless you, beloved children.
Thank you.
Beloved pastor.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.